As the cold winds of December begin to blow, and the nights grow longer, a quiet magic begins to weave through the world. Christmas is a time of celebration, joy, and warmth, but beneath its festive exterior lies a deep, ancient history full of strange myths and stories that span the ages. Have you ever stopped to think about where these Christmas traditions came from? The cheerful figure of Santa Claus, the glowing lights on the tree, the joy of gift-giving. They all have origins that stretch back through centuries of history, legends, and customs. Yet, few people know the full story of how these traditions evolved, or the mysteries and wonders they once represented. In this story, we aren't just talking about the holiday we know today. Instead, we are about to embark on a journey that will take us deep into the past, where ancient beliefs, mysterious deities, and forgotten rituals shape the way we celebrate Christmas today. From the dark days of winter solstice to the figure of St. Nicholas, whose name would eventually become synonymous with Santa Claus, Christmas myths are rooted in old-world customs that blended the sacred and the supernatural. The winter season has always held special significance for people all over the world. Long before the birth of Christ, ancient civilizations marked the turn of the year with festivities to honor the sun, the spirits of nature, and the cycles of life and death. For the ancient Romans, the time around December 25th was celebrated with Saturnalia, a festival dedicated to the god Saturn, which involved feasts, merrymaking, and exchange of gifts. Similarly, the Norse people celebrated the Yule festival, where they honored the sun and the gods, hoping for a safe and prosperous new year. These celebrations centered around the darkest days of the year, the winter solstice, when the light of the sun was reborn and the promise of spring slowly began to take form. Yet, it wasn't just the sun that was celebrated during these ancient festivals. The winter months also call for a deep reverence for the forces of nature that could be both beautiful and terrifying. The long nights, the icy winds, and the stillness of the earth brought with them a sense of mystery and fear. Spirits roamed freely in the dark, and mythological figures, some benevolent and others not so much, took center stage in the stories that were passed down from generation to generation. The Yule goat, the Norse god Odin, and later, the more frightening figure Krampus were all tied to the celebrations of winter, each contributing to a sense of awe and reverence for the season's unpredictable nature. The connection between Christmas and ancient winter festivals is not always immediately obvious. Much of what we associate with the holiday today, Santa Claus, the Christmas tree, the gift-giving, has roots in myths and stories that were told for centuries before they were incorporated into the modern celebration. But when we look at these old tales, we begin to see how they still live on in the customs we know today, and how they reflect something deeper about the human experience. The need for light in the darkness, for warmth against the cold, and for the hope of renewal that comes with the return of the sun. One of the most fascinating aspects of Christmas myths is how they were shaped by the blending of pagan, Christian, and folk traditions. St. Nicholas, for example, was a real person, a 4th century bishop known for his acts of kindness and generosity. His life was filled with stories of miracles and charity, which would later morph into the figure of Santa Claus. But St. Nicholas was not alone in his charitable acts. In many cultures, there were figures who would bring gifts to children during the winter months. Some were saintly, others were more mysterious or even dark. These figures evolved into the Christmas characters we know today, each one carrying its own legacy of myth and mystery. But before St. Nicholas became Santa Claus, the traditions surrounding gift-giving during Christmas were tied to much older beliefs. In many parts of Europe, people would leave offerings for spirits, gods, and ancestors during the winter season. The idea of exchanging gifts was rooted in the belief that doing so would bring blessings for the coming year. For instance, in ancient Germany, there was a tradition of giving gifts to appease the spirits of the forest during the cold months. These offerings were made in hopes that the spirits would protect the family and the land from the harsh winter ahead. Over time, these customs evolved and blended with Christian traditions, creating the Christmas gift-giving practice we know today. But Christmas myths aren't just about the transformation of St. Nicholas into Santa Claus or the origins of gift-giving. They also speak to something deeper, our need for meaning during a time when the world seems bleak and empty. The winter season, with its long, dark nights and the silence of the snow-covered land, often brings a sense of introspection. And it is during this time that people have historically turned to myths and stories to find comfort, meaning, and hope. These tales of gods, spirits, and miraculous events offer a way to connect to something larger than ourselves, to understand the mysteries of the universe, and to find solace in the promise of rebirth as the year begins anew. And this is where Christmas myths, as we know them today, find their power through the stories of St. Nicholas, the Yule Goat, Krampus, and the many other figures who have shaped the holiday. We see a pattern emerge. These myths all speak to the human need for light in the darkness, for hope in the face of uncertainty, and for a sense of magic and wonder that transcends the everyday. They remind us that even in the darkest times, there is a potential for something beautiful to emerge. The very idea that something as simple as a gift or a shared moment of warmth can bring joy and healing speaks to the deeper magic of the season. As we journey through the myths of Christmas, we will uncover the stories that have shaped our holiday traditions and explore how they have evolved over time. We'll see how the ancient and the modern intersect in surprising ways, and how the myths of Christmas continue to inspire awe and wonder even in our busy, fast-paced world. And as we delve into the origins of Santa Claus, the Yule Goat, and the other figures that make up the rich tapestry of Christmas myths, we will also discover the timeless human truths that lie behind them. The importance of giving, the power of hope, and the enduring magic of the winter season. So, as the cold winds howl outside and the glow of holiday lights fills the room, remember that Christmas is more than just a celebration of presents and festive cheer. It is a continuation of ancient myths, a reflection of humanity's need to find meaning and magic in the darkest days of the year. And the more we understand these myths, the more we can appreciate the magic that still surrounds us today. The story of St. Nicholas begins long before the figure of Santa Claus, and the life of this real man, a 4th century bishop, is woven into a tapestry of miracles, kindness, and generosity that transcends time. His legacy, born in the ancient city of Myra, modern-day Demre in Turkey, tells of a person whose life was marked by compassion, empathy, and devotion to those in need. To understand how this saint came to be associated with the modern Christmas traditions, we must first journey back to the heart of his story, where generosity was more than just an act of kindness. It was a reflection of a deep commitment to faith and humanity. St. Nicholas's life is clouded in a mix of legend and history. But what is known is that he became a bishop at a young age, a position that allowed him to serve his community in remarkable ways. He was known throughout the region for his acts of charity, often doing so anonymously. One of the most famous legends that surrounds his name involves 3 young sisters. Their father, a poor man, could not afford the dowries required for them to marry, leaving them with little hope for the future. Hearing of their plight, St. Nicholas secretly dropped 3 bags of gold coins into their home during the night, saving them from a life of despair. This tale of his secret generosity became a cornerstone of his legacy, and stories like this spread far and wide, earning him a reputation as a protector of the poor and the needy. But it wasn't just acts of kindness toward individuals that made St. Nicholas beloved. His devotion to children, in particular, was profound. The legend of him helping children became one of the most enduring aspects of his myth. In fact, St. Nicholas became known as the patron saint of children, and in time, the association between him and the gift-giving season began to solidify. Yet, these acts of kindness were not limited to simple gestures. Nicholas was a man who faced great challenges and continued to demonstrate his faith and resolve in the face of adversity. It's said that he was imprisoned during the reign of the Roman Emperor Diocletian, who persecuted Christians. Yet even in captivity, he remained steadfast in his belief. His ability to continue giving, even in the harshest of circumstances, only solidified his place in the hearts of those who heard his story. As time went on, St. Nicholas became a symbol of Christian charity, his stories passing from generation to generation. It is from these stories that the modern figure of Santa Claus would later emerge, though this transformation was not immediate. The figure of St. Nicholas would evolve over the centuries, blending with local customs and folklore, taking on new forms, and gradually being shaped into the jolly, bearded man in a red suit that we recognize today. This transformation happened in stages, shaped by cultural influences, and the Santa Claus we know is an amalgamation of multiple traditions that stretch far beyond the borders of the Christian faith. In the Netherlands, the figure of St. Nicholas took on the name Sinterklaas, a beloved character who arrived each year on the eve of December 5th, bringing a gift to children. Sinterklaas was depicted as a tall, stately figure, wearing a bishop's robes and a mitre, carrying a staff. His arrival was a highlight of the Dutch holiday season, and children eagerly awaited his visit. Over time, Dutch immigrants carried their traditions with them to the New World, particularly to the United States, where the figure of Santa Claus began to evolve. The combination of Dutch, British, and other European influences led to the development of a new version of St. Nicholas, which gradually took on the characteristics that we now associate with Santa Claus. The transformation from Sinterklaas to Santa Claus was influenced not only by European traditions, but also by the rapidly growing commercial culture of 19th century America. In 1823, the famous poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, more commonly known as The Night Before Christmas, was published, and it played a pivotal role in shaping the modern image of Santa Claus. This poem introduced many of the features we now associate with Santa: his reindeer, his ability to travel down chimneys, his round belly that shakes like a bowl full of jelly. It was a light-hearted, imaginative portrayal that captured the spirit of gift-giving and holiday joy. However, the poem's portrayal of Santa Claus was just one piece of the puzzle. Soon after, the Coca-Cola Company played a major role in cementing the image of Santa Claus as a jolly, plump man in a red suit with a white beard, thanks to a series of advertisements that began in the 1930s. These advertisements featured Santa enjoying a refreshing Coke, and over time, this visual became so ingrained in popular culture that it became the definitive image of the character. However, while this image of Santa is the most recognizable today, it's important to remember that the story of St. Nicholas and the evolution of Santa Claus is not just about commercialization. It's about the enduring power of myth and the deep human desire to give, to share, and to spread joy. In many ways, the transition from St. Nicholas to Santa Claus is a perfect reflection of the transformation of Christmas itself. What began as a religious and sacred holiday, filled with stories of the birth of Christ, gradually took on new meanings as it became infused with other cultural traditions. Over time, Christmas evolved from a solemn religious observance into a celebration that blended faith with family, festivity, and the joy of giving. The character of St. Nicholas, originally a symbol of charity and religious devotion, adapted and shifted to meet the needs and desires of the culture around it. But in doing so, it kept the core message intact, that the spirit of generosity, kindness, and love is at the heart of Christmas. The modern image of Santa Claus, now so synonymous with Christmas, carries with the weight of centuries of tradition, stories, and beliefs. While the legend has changed, at its core remains the same idea: giving. Santa's journey from a saintly figure known for his kindness and miracles to the larger-than-life character who brings joy and gifts to children around the world is a reflection of the ways in which mythology and culture evolve over time. Santa represents not just the joy of the holiday season, but also the timeless need for hope, renewal, and magic in our lives, especially during the darkest days of the year. As we think about the life of St. Nicholas and the evolution of his story into Santa Claus, it becomes clear that these myths and legends are not merely about nostalgia or holiday cheer. They are about the deeper, universal truths that they embody: the power of kindness, the importance of generosity, and the way in which we, as humans, seek to create meaning and connection to the stories we tell. St. Nicholas was not just a man who gave gifts. He was a symbol of a deeper human need to spread goodness in a world that can often feel cold and indifferent. His story, though shaped by centuries of cultural shifts, still holds a profound message that resonates today. So, the next time you see a Santa Claus figure, whether in a mall or in a Christmas movie, take a moment to remember that this figure is not just a commercial icon. He is a living continuation of a story that has traveled through time, bearing with it the spirit of kindness, giving, and hope. From the humble beginnings of St. Nicholas in ancient Myra to the jolly old man in a red suit that we know today, the essence of Christmas remains unchanged, bringing light to the darkest days of the year through the simple yet profound act of giving. Santa Claus is a beloved figure known around the world, but his association with the North Pole is much more recent than most people realize. The idea that Santa lives at the North Pole, isolated in a snowy, magical workshop surrounded by elves and reindeer, is a product of the modern imagination. But how did this far northern location come to be the home of one of the most famous characters in history? To understand the origins of Santa's North Pole dwelling, we must delve into the complex web of myth, geography, and culture that led to this seemingly random choice. In the early tales of St. Nicholas, there was no mention of the North Pole. The figure of St. Nicholas, a 4th century bishop known for his kindness and generosity, had no specific geographical home in the frozen wilderness. He was a man of the Mediterranean, living in Myra, a city located in what is now modern-day Turkey. The stories surrounding St. Nicholas were grounded in the warmth of the southern world, where the Mediterranean sun shone bright, and the customs and folklore of the region shaped the holiday traditions. The concept of a snowy, isolated workshop would have seemed utterly foreign to those who first told stories of this generous bishop. However, as St. Nicholas's legacy grew and evolved, so too did his myth. By the time the Dutch brought their Santa Claus tradition to the New World in the 18th century, Santa had begun to take on a more mythical and magical form. It was during this period that Santa's home was first imagined as a distant, faraway place, a land removed from the bustle of everyday life, where the rules of the ordinary world didn't apply. In many cultures, there's always been a fascination with the extreme ends of the earth, places that were believed to be mysterious, magical, and untouchable. The North Pole, located at the very top of the world, seemed to embody all of these qualities. The first notable mention of the North Pole as Santa's home comes from the 1823 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, more commonly known as A Night Before Christmas. In this poem, Santa Claus is described as traveling down the chimney in a single night to deliver presents to all the children, but the poem does not specify where Santa comes from. The idea of a far-off magical land where Santa's workshop might be located wasn't fully formed at this point, but the groundwork was laid for this imaginative conception. The absence of any defined home for Santa allowed the idea of a mysterious, faraway realm to take shape in the public imagination. In the 19th century, the idea of the North Pole being the perfect location for Santa's residence was reinforced by the growing fascination with exploration. During this time, explorers were attempting to reach the furthest, most remote corners of the Earth, and the North Pole was one of the last great frontiers. The era of polar exploration was just beginning, and stories of daring expeditions to the Arctic captivated the world. These explorers, such as Robert Peary and Frederick Cook, were consumed with reaching the pole, which was seen as the ultimate destination, a place of extreme isolation, harsh conditions, and a sense of triumph over forces of nature. It was against this backdrop of exploration and adventure that the idea of Santa Claus being a resident of the North Pole began to gain traction. The Arctic, with its endless winter and seemingly endless white expanse, was the perfect setting for Santa's magical workshop. It was a land that existed beyond the reach of ordinary people, where the magic of Christmas could unfold away from prying eyes. The idea of Santa living in a place so remote, so difficult to reach, added an element of mystery to the legend. Just as the North Pole itself was elusive, so too was the secret of how Santa managed to travel around the world in one night. By the time the 20th century rolled around, the image of Santa Claus and his North Pole workshop had become firmly entrenched in popular culture. The development of mass media, such as magazines, books, and later television, helped solidify the North Pole as the perfect setting for the Christmas legend. Early 20th century illustrators, like Haddon Sundblom, played a significant role in shaping the modern image of Santa Claus. His famous Coca-Cola advertisements, which featured a jolly, plump Santa enjoying a refreshing drink in the snowy landscape, further cemented the association between Santa and the cold, frozen North. The North Pole was not just a whimsical backdrop for Santa's workshop. It also became symbolic of the magic of Christmas itself. The harshness and isolation of the Arctic seemed to mirror the contrast between the mundane world and the wonder of the holiday season. Christmas was a time when impossible became possible, when magic was real, and when the world seemed to slow down just long enough for something extraordinary to happen. The North Pole, with its unyielding ice and snow, became the perfect location for Santa's mythical world, a place where the rules of the everyday world didn't apply. Yet, while the North Pole provided a rich and intriguing backdrop for Santa's home, the idea of a magical, otherworldly place also reflected broader cultural themes. In many cultures, there's a long-standing tradition of mythic places, lands that are beyond reach, beyond the known world, where the divine, the supernatural, or the extraordinary reside. These places are often situated at the ends of the earth, hidden from view, where only the brave, the pure, or the chosen few can ever hope to enter. Santa's North Pole is part of this larger tradition of mythic places, where magic is made and where the ordinary world can be transformed into something special. The role of the North Pole in Santa's mythology is also a reflection of the season itself. Christmas falls during the darkest days of the year, when the cold and the dark can feel overwhelming. The imagery of a winter wonderland, with its snow-covered trees, frosty air, and quiet stillness, evokes a sense of peacefulness and calm. The North Pole, with its endless snow, its icy winds, and its shimmering lights, is a place where the world slows down, where the frenzy of modern life is left behind, and where the magic of the season can unfold. In many ways, the North Pole becomes a metaphor for the spirit of Christmas itself, a place where the impossible becomes possible, where wonder exists, and where time seems to stand still. As the years passed and Christmas traditions continued to evolve, Santa's North Pole home became even more elaborate and fantastical. Stories of Santa's workshop, where toys are made by industrious elves and his team of reindeer who fly across the night sky, fill books and films, bringing the magic of Christmas to life in vivid detail. The North Pole became a place of wonder and imagination, where the laws of nature and physics no longer applied. It was a place where Christmas miracles could happen, and where children's dreams were made real. The North Pole is now so deeply associated with Santa Claus that it is almost impossible to imagine him living anywhere else. As winter's chill deepens and the days grow shorter, the ancient rituals and customs that were once designed to ward off the darkness of long, cold months still echo to the quiet corners of the world. In Scandinavia, one of the most enduring figures of winter folklore is the Yule goat, a creature that holds deep roots in pre-Christian traditions, yet continues to appear in the celebrations surrounding Christmas. The Yule goat is an embodiment of the harshness of winter, but also the resilience and spirit of the people who face its challenges. To understand the significance of the Yule goat, we must first journey back to a time before the arrival of Christianity in Northern Europe, when ancient customs were intertwined with the rhythms of the seasons and the powers of nature. In ancient Norse traditions, the Yule goat was originally a spirit or creature associated with the winter solstice, a time when the darkest days of the year marked both an end and a beginning. During the long winter nights, people would gather around fires, seeking warmth and comfort in the face of the biting cold, while stories of gods, spirits, and the forces of nature were shared to bring meaning and understanding to the world around them. The Yule goat was one of these mythic figures, a being that symbolized a connection between the people and the natural world, as well as the supernatural forces that controlled it. The Yule goat's role in early winter festivals was deeply tied to the worship of gods and spirits who were believed to control the forces of nature, particularly the powers that govern the harvest and the changing seasons. In Norse mythology, one of the most important deities associated with the winter months was Thor, the thunder god, who rode a chariot pulled by two goats, Tangrisnir and Tangjostr, through the skies. These goats were not only symbols of power and strength, but were also linked to the themes of rebirth and renewal that were so central to the winter solstice. As the winter season began to fade, Thor's goats were said to bring the light and warmth of spring back to the world, signaling the end of the harshest part of winter. In many ways, the Yule goat was an extension of these ancient beliefs, embodying both the fears and hopes of the people during this dark time of the year. The creature was often depicted as a horned figure, sometimes fierce and frightening, at other times more playful or mischievous. In some stories, the Yule goat would come to homes during the winter solstice, either to protect or to punish those who had not adhered to the customs of the season. It was believed that the goat's presence ensured the safety and prosperity of the household for the coming year. The Yule goat, in this sense, was both a symbol of the dangers of winter and a protector against them. As Christianity spread through Scandinavia, many of the old customs and deities were adapted or absorbed into the new religious practices. The Yule goat did not disappear, but rather took on new meanings. Instead of being a spirit of nature or a wild creature, it became a more domestic figure, closely associated with the celebrations of Christmas. In the early Christianized version of the Yule goat, the creature was said to visit homes and deliver gifts, much like the modern-day Santa Claus, though with a more ominous presence. It is from these traditions that the Yule goat evolved into the mischievous character known today in Scandinavian countries as Jolbakken or Yule goat, a figure who would appear at Christmas time, sometimes bringing presents, but other times acting as a harbinger of mischief. In Sweden, for instance, the Yule goat was once believed to travel from house to house, with the role of delivering gifts to children. This character would be dressed in a costume made of straw, and children would eagerly await his arrival during the Christmas season. The Yule goat's appearance at the doorstep was meant to bring good luck and blessings, as well as a reminder of the importance of keeping traditions alive. This transition of the Yule goat from a fearsome winter spirit to a more benevolent figure shows how the ancient myths were reinterpreted as the culture shifted towards Christianity. The role of the Yule goat during Christmas was also linked to the practice of decorating homes with straw ornaments and wreaths. These decorations, which are still seen in Scandinavian homes today, were once thought to appease the Yule goat and ensure good fortune for the family in the coming year. The presence of straw as a material in these decorations ties back to the early pagan rituals of the winter solstice, where the straw was seen as a symbol of fertility, abundance, and renewal. The Yule goat, as a figure linked to these ancient symbols, thus became a central part of the festive atmosphere during Christmas, representing both the old and new worlds coming together. However, the Yule goat's significance extends beyond the Scandinavian region. In Finland, the Yule goat is known as joulupukki, and the figure has become an integral part of the Christmas celebration. Interestingly, joulupukki is often depicted as a more jolly, Santa-like figure, dressed in a red suit and delivering gifts to children. This version of the Yule goat has evolved over the years to closely resemble the modern-day image of Santa Claus, and many of the traditions surrounding joulupukki have become indistinguishable from those of Santa in other parts of the world. The blending of the Yule goat with the Santa Claus myth is just one example of how different elements of Christmas traditions have merged over time, creating a hybrid mythology that spans cultures and centuries. The continued presence of the Yule goat in Scandinavian Christmas traditions serves as a reminder how myths and customs evolve and adapt over time. While the figure of the Yule goat has been transformed into a more familiar and friendly character in modern celebrations, its roots still run deep in the ancient rituals of winter solstice celebrations. The goat's role as a bringer of both gifts and mischief highlights the dual nature of winter itself, both a time of celebration and a reminder of the harshness of nature. Amid the festivity and joy of Christmas, there exists a darker and more unsettling figure that has long haunted the shadows of holiday folklore. This figure is none other than Krampus, a creature who serves as a terrifying counterpart to the benevolent Santa Claus. While Santa rewards children for their good behavior with gifts and treats, Krampus punishes those who have been naughty. His role in Christmas traditions is not just about frightening children into good behavior, but also about the complex interplay between light and darkness that defines much of holiday mythology. To understand Krampus and his origins, we must step into a world where fear, folklore, and the supernatural intertwine, creating a figure that is as fascinating as he is frightening. The legend of Krampus is deeply rooted in the traditions of Alpine Europe, particularly in countries like Austria, Germany, and Hungary, where the figure has been a part of Christmas folklore for centuries. Krampus is often depicted as a half-goat, half-demon creature, with horns, a long tongue, and a mischievous, menacing grin. His body is covered in shaggy fur, and he carries chains and a bundle of birch twigs, which he uses to punish the naughty. Some versions of the tale describe Krampus as dragging a sack or basket on his back, in which he supposedly kidnaps misbehaving children and takes them away to his lair. His very appearance is meant to evoke fear, reminding children that Christmas is not just about receiving gifts, but also about moral behavior and discipline. The origins of Krampus are tied to pre-Christian winter festivals that celebrated the forces of nature, including the harshness of winter and the supernatural beings that were believed to inhabit it. In these early traditions, winter was seen as a time when the boundaries between the human world and the supernatural realm grew thin, and spirits, both good and evil, could wander freely. Krampus, in many ways, embodies the wild, chaotic, and sometimes dangerous forces of winter. While many Christmas traditions focus on the light and warmth of the season, Krampus was a reminder of the darker side of life, the harshness of season, the dangers that lurked in the night, and the consequences of misdeeds. The figure of Krampus is believed to have roots in ancient pagan traditions, particularly those of the Germanic and Norse peoples. In these cultures, there were various beings and spirits associated with winter and the solstice, many of whom had both benevolent and malevolent qualities. Krampus is thought to be a descendant of these ancient spirits, a creature who represented the darker aspects of the natural world. Some scholars suggest that Krampus may have even been inspired by the Norse god, the wild and fearsome figure known as a horned god, or the god of the wild hunt, who is often depicted riding through the winter sky, accompanied by a host of spirits or mythical creatures. As Christianity spread through Europe, many of the old pagan traditions were absorbed into the new religious practices, and figures like Krampus became intertwined with the Christian celebration of Christmas. In this context, Krampus came to be seen as a counterpart to St. Nicholas, the saintly figure who rewarded good children with gifts. Where St. Nicholas was a symbol of generosity and kindness, Krampus represented punishment and retribution. In the Christianized version of the legend, Krampus would arrive on the evening of December 5th, known as Krampusnacht, Krampus night, just before St. Nicholas visited the children. While St. Nicholas would bring sweets, toys, and blessings for the well-behaved, Krampus would carry out his terrifying mission, using his birch twigs to swat naughty children and scare them into good behavior. In some traditions, Krampus was said to be so frightening that children were warned that if they misbehaved, they would be taken away by him. Despite his frightening nature, Krampus was not just a figure of fear and punishment. His presence in Christmas folklore also served as a reminder of the importance of moral behavior and the balance between good and evil. The story of Krampus was a way for parents to instill discipline in their children, using the fear of the creature to encourage them to be good. Krampus, like many figures in folklore, was a reflection of the human desire to explain the complexities of life, including the moral consequences of one's actions. The creature embodied the darker side of the Christmas season, the fear and anxiety that often accompany the winter months. And yet, in his role as an enforcer of justice, he was also seen as a necessary part of the holiday mythos. Over time, the figure of Krampus became more integrated into the Christmas celebrations in Alpine regions. In Austria and Germany, for example, Krampuslauf or Krampus runs became a popular tradition. During these events, people would dress up as Krampus, donning elaborate costumes with horns, fangs, and fur, and parade through streets, frightening onlookers and performing playful mischief. These Krampus runs were a way for communities to embrace the figure of Krampus, transforming him from a purely terrifying entity into a more festive, albeit still unsettling, figure of the holiday season. In these celebrations, Krampus was no longer solely a creature of fear, but a symbol of the dual nature of Christmas itself, the balance between joy and fear, light and dark. In recent years, the figure of Krampus has experienced a resurgence in popularity, particularly in the United States and other parts of the world. This revival is part of a broader trend of reimagining old myths and folklore, as people seek to reconnect with the deeper, more primal aspects of holiday traditions. Krampus has appeared in films, TV shows, and popular media, often depicted as a more comical or satirical character, but his underlying role as a force of punishment and retribution remains intact. The modern portrayal of Krampus often emphasizes the creature's mischievous nature, adding a layer of humor to the traditionally terrifying figure. Yet, even in these modern interpretations, Krampus serves as a reminder of the complexity of Christmas mythology and the duality of the season. While the figure of Krampus is often seen as a dark and frightening presence, his role in the holiday season is far more nuanced. Krampus represents the essential balance between the forces of good and evil, kindness and punishment, and joy and fear. His presence in Christmas folklore serves as a reminder that the holiday season is not just about light, warmth, and generosity, but also about the importance of moral behavior, discipline, and the consequences of one's actions. Krampus, like many figures of mythology, embodies the wild, untamed aspects of nature and the human psyche, reminding us that the holiday season is a time not only for celebration, but also for reflection, growth, and understanding. As Christmas traditions continue to evolve, Krampus remains a potent symbol of the holiday's deeper, more mysterious qualities. He is a figure who defies easy categorization, a creature of darkness, yet also a necessary part of the mythological landscape that surrounds Christmas. In embracing both the joy and the fear of the season, Krampus reminds us that the holiday is not just a time for receiving gifts, but for understanding the complexities of life, the importance of personal responsibility, and the eternal dance between light and dark. The story of Krampus is a tale that speaks to the heart of what it means to be human, the constant push and pull between good and evil, the challenges we face in a world that is both beautiful and harsh, and the lessons we learn along the way. In the deep, mysterious heart of winter, when the nights seem longer and the air is crisp with a bite of cold. There are figures from folklore who represent not only the magic of the season, but also its more eerie and unsettling side. Among these figures, two women stand out in traditions of Christmas myths, Perchta and Frau Holly. These winter witches, often associated with the solstice and Yule season, have a complex and multifaceted role in the mythologies of Central and Northern Europe. While their stories have evolved over time, they still carry with them a sense of ancient power, mystery, and the force of nature that cannot be tamed or ignored. Perchta, known by many names in different regions, Beast Perchta, White Perchta, and many others, was originally thought to be a goddess of fertility, abundance, and the wilderness. Her origins are deeply rooted in pre-Christian Alpine and Germanic traditions, where she was revered as a protector of women and children, especially those who were engaged in domestic tasks like spinning and weaving. As winter approached, Perchta would become a more ominous figure. She was said to roam the mountains during the 12 days of Christmas, a period from December 25th to January 6th, observing the behavior of the people she encountered. In particular, Perchta was a figure associated with the concept of reward and punishment. If she found someone who had not fulfilled their duties, especially the weaving and spinning tasks expected of them, or if they had been morally neglectful in any way, Perchta would punish them severely. Her punishments were often said to involve grotesque acts, such as slitting open the bellies of the lazy or deceitful and filling them with straw, signifying the emptiness of their lives. In this sense, Perchta's character embodies a harshness and brutal reality of winter. Her association with spinning and the domestic tasks of women ties her to the cycles of nature, as well as the importance of maintaining order and discipline in the household. The brutal punishment for failure was meant to ensure that those who slacked off or disregarded their responsibilities would be reminded of the consequences. However, Perchta was not just a bringer of punishment. In some versions of the legend, she was also a figure of transformation and renewal, the birthing of new life after the harshness of winter. The promise of spring that lay just around the corner was also under her domain. In these stories, she is seen as protector of those who are pure and diligent in their efforts, rewarding them with blessings and protection. While Perchta's myth seems to primarily focus on her role as a punisher of misdeeds, she also embodies the more ambiguous aspects of winter, the dual nature of the season that brings both danger and beauty, death and life. She is a figure who commands respect, not just because of her capacity for punishment, but also because she represents the unyielding forces of nature that are beyond human control. The darkness and cold of winter were not seen as evil, but as forces that were to be respected, feared, and understood. Perchta's role in these myths reflects that relationship between humankind and nature, a reminder of the ways in which people must work in harmony with the seasons to survive and thrive. Frau Holly, like Perchta, is another important figure of winter folklore. While Perchta's myths tend to focus on punishment and the darker aspects of winter, Frau Holly is a gentler, though still powerful, figure who represents the magical and transformative qualities of the season. She is often depicted as an old woman who lives in a realm beyond the mortal world, and her role in winter myths is tied to the snow itself. According to legend, Frau Holly would shake out her feather bed in the sky, and as she did, snow would fall to the earth. This image of Frau Holly shaking her bed and sending snow to the earth is one of the most enduring symbols of winter in Germanic and Alpine traditions. The snow, which is both beautiful and cold, became associated with her care and attention, symbolizing the balance between beauty and harshness in the natural world. Like Perchta, Frau Holly is also a figure who rewards and punishes, but her methods are somewhat different. In many versions of the story, she takes on the role of a kind of judge, deciding the fate of those she encounters. In the famous German fairy tale Frau Holly by the Brothers Grimm, there are two sisters, one kind and diligent, the other lazy and deceitful. The diligent sister, who has worked hard and shown kindness, is rewarded by Frau Holly with gifts and blessings, while the lazy sister, who has neglected her duties and been selfish, is punished. Frau Holly's reward is often depicted as a shower of gold or wealth, while her punishment for the lazy or greedy is a loss of her place in the world or a shower of pitch. This judgment reflects the idea that winter is a time for both reckoning and reward, a period when people must face the consequences of their actions, but also when there is a potential for renewal and transformation. Frau Holly, much like Perchta, is a figure who sits at the intersection of the forces of nature, morality, and transformation. She represents the dual nature of winter, where the harsh cold and difficult conditions are tempered by the possibility of new beginnings. While Perchta's myths tend to focus on the harsher aspect of this duality, punishment, fear, and retribution, Frau Holly embodies the more nurturing, regenerative qualities of the season. In many ways, she represents the life-giving force of winter, as the snow she creates nourishes the earth and prepares it for the renewal of spring. But like all mythic figures tied to the changing of the seasons, Frau Holly is a reminder that the balance between life and death, reward and punishment, is delicate and must be respected. Together, Perchta and Frau Holly offer a complex and nuanced view of winter, one that sees the season not as simply a time of darkness and cold, but as a time of reflection, transformation, and the balancing of opposites. Their presence in Christmas folklore serves as a reminder that the holiday season is not just about celebrating the warmth of family and the joy of giving, but also about understanding the deeper, often more challenging aspect of the human experience. Winter, with its quiet stillness and its harshness, mirrors the complexities of life itself. The constant push and pull between light and dark, warmth and cold, good and evil. Through the figures of Perchta and Frau Holly, we are reminded that the winter season, like all seasons, is a time of both challenge and opportunity, where we must navigate the forces of nature and the consequences of our actions in order to emerge stronger, wiser, and more prepared for cycles of life to come. As these ancient figures have continued to evolve in Christmas traditions, their presence reminds us of the deep, abiding connection between myth and reality, between the forces of nature and the ways in which we seek meaning and understanding in the world around us. Whether through the stern and punishing gaze of Perchta or the more nurturing and transformative qualities of Frau Holly, these figures embody the rich complexity of winter and the lessons it has to offer. Their stories invite us to reflect on the past, to reckon with our actions, and to embrace the potential for renewal and growth that comes with every passing season. Amid the shimmering glow of Christmas lights and the gentle crackling of firelight, one of the most iconic symbols of the season stands tall: the Christmas tree. For many, it is a symbol of joy, celebration, and familial togetherness. It is adorned with decorations, wrapped in twinkling lights, and crowned with star or angel. But what is the deeper significance behind this beloved tradition, and how did the Christmas tree evolve from a pagan symbol of life and death to a centerpiece of modern holiday celebrations? The story of the Christmas tree begins long before the advent of Christianity. Ancient cultures, particularly those in Northern Europe, had a profound reverence for evergreens during the winter months. These trees, which retained their leaves or needles throughout the harshest parts of the year, were seen as symbols of life, immortality, and resilience. As winter descended, when most other trees lost their foliage and the land seemed dead or dormant, the evergreen stood as a reminder that life could persist even through the coldest, darkest season. The early Germanic and Norse peoples, for example, celebrated the winter solstice with great reverence, marking the rebirth of the sun and the gradual return of light to the earth. The evergreen tree was central to these celebrations, often brought into homes or decorated to honor the gods and spirits they worshipped. The tradition of bringing an evergreen tree into the home can be traced back to ancient winter solstice rituals. In many of these cultures, the act was symbolic of hope and renewal. The Romans, for instance, celebrated Saturnalia, a festival in honor of the god Saturn, during the solstice. This period was filled with revelry, feasting, and the exchange of gifts, but also honored the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The evergreen tree, often used as a decoration in Roman homes, was a symbol of the sun's return after the longest night of the year. It represented the promise of new growth, new beginnings, and the triumph of light over darkness. These traditions of bringing greenery indoors to celebrate the turning of the season would lay the groundwork for the modern Christmas tree. However, it was a medieval period that would see the first true precursor to the Christmas tree as we know it today. During the 12th century, a mystery play in the Christian tradition was performed in many European towns. This play, which told the story of Adam and Eve, was often staged during the Christmas season. The actors would use a tree, commonly referred to as the paradise tree, which was adorned with apples to symbolize the Garden of Eden. This tree was meant to represent the tree of knowledge, with forbidden fruit, and its use in the play served to remind the audience of the Christian narrative of creation, sin, and redemption. This early form of the Christmas tree would evolve over time, as the symbolic use of trees during the holiday season began to take on more festive and secular meanings. In the 16th century, the modern Christmas tree began to take shape in Germany. The practice of decorating a tree for Christmas became widespread, and the trees were adorned not only with apples, but also with candles, sweets, and other festive decorations. The candles represented the light of Christ coming into the world, and the sweet treats were a reminder of the abundance and joy of the season. The idea of the Christmas tree spread slowly throughout Europe, gaining popularity among the nobility and eventually becoming a common tradition in homes of all classes. The Christmas tree was no longer merely a symbol of life's endurance through winter. It had evolved into a Christian symbol of the light and joy that Christ brought to the world. The Christmas tree's popularity in Germany eventually made its way across Europe, and by the early 19th century, it had become a well-established tradition in England. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, who were of German descent, are often credited with popularizing the Christmas tree in England after they had won place in their home at Windsor Castle. The royal family's adoption of the tree as a symbol of the season sparked a national fascination with the practice, and soon it was common for families to gather around the tree on Christmas Eve, exchanging gifts and celebrating the season together. This tradition spread to America in the mid-19th century, where it quickly became a cornerstone of the Christmas celebration, transforming into the elaborate, decorated trees we are familiar with today. While the Christmas tree became a central feature of holiday celebrations, it also maintained its symbolic significance, particularly in relation to the idea of rebirth. The evergreen tree, which continues to be the most popular type of Christmas tree, has always been a symbol of the cyclical nature of life. Just as a tree endures through the harshness of winter, it represents the hope that after a period of darkness, new growth will emerge. This concept of rebirth is especially important in the context of Christmas, which itself is rooted in themes of renewal and transformation. The Christmas tree stands as a reminder that even in the darkest and coldest moments, there is always a potential for new beginnings, growth, and light. The tradition of decorating the Christmas tree also reflects deeper cultural values. The act of gathering together as a family to decorate the tree has become a cherished ritual for many. It is a time for families to come together, reflect on the past year, and share in the joy of the present moment. The decorations themselves, whether they be ornaments passed down through generations, homemade crafts, or new additions to the collection, serve as markers of memory, helping to create a sense of continuity and tradition. The tree becomes not only a symbol of the holiday season, but also a tangible representation of the bonds that connect families and communities. In addition to its role as a family centerpiece, the Christmas tree has become a symbol of community and public celebration. Town squares and city centers often feature grand, towering trees that bring people together to celebrate the season. The lighting of these public trees is a moment of collective joy and unity, as communities gather to share in the magic of the season. The Christmas tree, in these settings, becomes a beacon of hope and warmth, a symbol of shared values and collective celebration. It reminds us that while the Christmas season is deeply personal and tied to individual families, it is also a time when communities come together to celebrate the joy, light, and hope that the season represents. As Christmas trees continue to be a central symbol of the holiday, the tradition has evolved in various ways to reflect modern tastes and practices. Some families opt for artificial trees, which offer convenience and the ability to reuse decorations year after year. Others still prefer the natural scent and beauty of a real tree, though the environmental impact of cutting down trees for the holiday season has prompted some to seek more sustainable options. Regardless of the tree's form, the act of decorating it remains a cherished tradition, a time to express creativity, celebrate family, and mark the passage of time. Despite the changes in how we celebrate the season, the Christmas tree continues to embody the timeless themes of hope, renewal, and togetherness. It serves as a reminder that even in the midst of winter, there is always a potential for light and growth. The tradition of the Christmas tree, from its pagan origins to its modern-day incarnation, reflects the ways in which people have sought to find meaning and joy during the darkest times of the year. As we gather around our trees, whether in our homes or in our communities, we are reminded of the enduring power of light, the importance of family and tradition, and the promise of renewal that comes with the return of the sun. Through the simple yet powerful symbol of the Christmas tree, we celebrate not just a holiday season, but the resilience of the human spirit and the eternal cycle of life and rebirth. The winter solstice, the longest night of the year, has been celebrated by cultures around the world for millennia. It marks the point at which darkness begins to recede and light gradually returns. For those who lived in ancient times, this was a significant moment, as it represented not just the triumph of the sun over the night, but also the promise of renewal and hope. The solstice was not merely a passing of time. It was a moment that captured the heart of human existence, reminding people that even in the most difficult and darkest times, there was always a potential for rebirth, for a fresh start. This idea of the winter solstice as a time of hope and renewal has permeated many traditions, including the Christmas celebration, which incorporates elements of these ancient rituals. For the ancient Romans, the solstice was a time of the festival of Saturnalia, a week-long celebration that honored the god Saturn. Saturn was the god of agriculture, liberation, and time, and his festival was a time for feasting, revelry, and the reversal of social norms. It was a time when masters and slaves would swap roles, and a general sense of freedom and joy would sweep through the empire. The customs of Saturnalia were not solely focused on the solstice itself, but the festival's timing was deeply connected to the solstice's themes of renewal and the cyclical nature of life. The festival also marked the beginning of the return of longer days, a symbolic victory of light over darkness. In Norse mythology, the winter solstice was tied to Yule celebration, another major winter festival. The Norse people believed that the solstice represented the birth of the sun, and they celebrated with fires, feasts, and rituals meant to honor their gods and protect the home during the coldest months of the year. The Yule log, which would burn throughout the night, was a symbol of the sun's return and the rebirth of the light. The log's warmth represented the sun's energy returning to the earth, bringing with it the promise of spring and the revival of life. The Yule festival and its customs, such as the lighting of fires, were integral to the Norse understanding of the winter solstice as a time of hope, renewal, and the rejuvenation of life after the cold, dark months. The concept of the solstice as a time of rebirth is also deeply rooted in Celtic traditions. For the Celts, the solstice was known as Yule, and it was a time of great spiritual significance. They believed that the solstice marked the birth of the sun god, a symbol of light overcoming darkness. The solstice was celebrated with a variety of rituals, many of which focus on the idea of welcoming the sun back to the world. People would decorate their homes with evergreens, which were seen as symbols of life that remained constant through the cold months. The Yule log was also an important part of the Celtic celebration, as it represented the return of warmth and life to the land. The act of burning the Yule log was seen as a way of welcoming the sun's return, with the hope that its light would soon bring warmth and abundance to the land. The theme of rebirth is also deeply embedded in Christian tradition, particularly in the context of the birth of Jesus Christ. While the Christmas story itself is set several days after the solstice, the symbolism of light overcoming darkness is central to the holiday. The birth of Christ, often associated with the light of the world, represents the arrival of hope and salvation in a dark world. The nativity scene, with the infant Jesus surrounded by shepherds, animals, and wise men, is a depiction of the light that comes into the world at the darkest time of year. The Christmas story itself echoes the themes of renewal and rebirth that were central to solstice celebrations long before the advent of Christianity. As the Christian holiday of Christmas became intertwined with earlier solstice traditions, the themes of light, hope, and renewal continue to be central to the celebration. The symbolism of the Christmas tree, with its lights shining brightly in the darkness, is a direct reflection of these ancient solstice rituals. Just as a fire and the Yule log were seen as symbols of the sun's return, the lights on the Christmas tree represent the same idea: the triumph of light over darkness and the promise of a new beginning. The act of decorating the tree with lights has become one of the most enduring traditions of the Christmas season, with families and communities coming together to celebrate the return of light during the darkest part of the year. In many ways, the solstice's celebration of light and rebirth has been passed down to the generations, evolving from ancient festivals into modern-day celebration of Christmas. The concept of the solstice as a turning point in the year, when the darkness begins to give way to light, still resonates strongly with many people. For some, the Christmas season is a time of reflection, renewal, and personal growth, much as it was for those who celebrated the solstice centuries ago. The themes of renewal, hope, and the return of light still shape the way we approach the holiday season, infusing it with a sense of spiritual significance that transcends the gift-giving and festive cheer. As Christmas approaches each year, many people find themselves reflecting on the past and looking ahead to the future. The symbolism of the winter solstice, of light triumphing over darkness, of new beginnings and fresh starts, resonates with the feelings of hope and anticipation that often accompany the holiday season. The winter solstice represents a time to let go of the old and welcome the new, to reflect on what is past and look forward to what is yet to come. Just as the sun begins to return to the sky after the solstice, so too does the promise of new opportunities, fresh starts, and brighter days. The winter solstice is also a time when people come together to celebrate, whether through religious rituals, festive gatherings, or personal moments of reflection. The sense of community and connection that is so central to holiday season is rooted in these ancient solstice traditions, where people would come together to share food, music, and merriment as they awaited the return of the sun. In many ways, Christmas has retained the spirit of togetherness, even as the traditions and customs have evolved. The act of sharing meals, exchanging gifts, and coming together with loved ones mirrors the communal celebrations of the solstice that have been practiced for thousands of years. As we approach the winter solstice each year, we are reminded of the deep historical and cultural significance of this time. It is not just a time to celebrate the arrival of the holiday season, but a time to reflect on the cycles of life, the passing of time, and the promise of renewal. The solstice, with its themes of light, rebirth, and hope, has always been a time for people to look to the future with anticipation and optimism. Christmas, as it exists today, carries forward the spirit of the solstice, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, there is always a potential for light, for change, and for new beginnings. The 12 days of Christmas, a tradition that has captured the hearts of many for centuries, offer more than just a catchy tune or a calendar of holiday cheer. These 12 days, stretching from Christmas Day to the Feast of the Epiphany on January 6th, represent a period filled with deep meaning, rich symbolism, and spiritual significance. While today the days are often associated with merrymaking, feasts, and exchange of gifts, their origins lie in much older traditions that honor the sacred nature of the season. The 12 days were not just a time of celebration. They were a time for reflection, for honoring the divine, and for marking the transition from the old year to the new. The 12 days of Christmas were originally conceived as a time for Christians to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ and the unfolding of his story. In many Christian liturgical traditions, the 12 days are a period to reflect on the events surrounding Christ's birth, beginning with the Nativity on December 25th and culminating with the arrival of the Magi, the three wise men, on January 6th. The Feast of the Epiphany, which celebrates the revelation of Christ to the Gentiles, is considered the final day of the Christmas season in many Christian communities. For Christians in the Western Church, the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany symbolize the divine nature of Christ and his impact on the world. The 12 days themselves were seen as a sacred time to honor the mystery of the Incarnation and the gift of salvation that came with Christ's birth. In medieval and early modern Europe, the 12 days were often marked by religious observances, feasts, and various forms of liturgical celebrations. These days were considered a time when the boundaries between the natural and supernatural world were particularly thin, and it was believed that the veil between heaven and earth was more easily pierced during this sacred period. As a result, the 12 days were filled with reverence, prayer, and the sharing of spiritual blessings. In some traditions, the 12 days were seen as a journey of sorts, one that took the faithful through different stages of Christ's story. For example, the first day, Christmas Day itself, marked the joyous celebration of Christ's birth. The second day of Christmas, known as St. Stephen's Day, honored the first Christian martyr, St. Stephen, who was stoned to death for his faith. The third day, which fell on the feast of St. John the Evangelist, celebrated the beloved disciple and the deep love and connection between Christ and his followers. Each day, then, offer an opportunity to reflect on different aspects of Christ's life and ministry, as well as on the broader themes of love, sacrifice, and redemption that are central to the Christmas message. For many, the 12 days were also a time to reflect on the passage of time itself, especially in relation to the changing of the year. In the ancient world, the winter solstice was seen as a pivotal point in the cycle of the year, and it marked the gradual return of light and warmth after the long nights of winter. The 12 days of Christmas can be thought of as a spiritual journey that mirrors the movement from darkness to light, from the old year to the new. As the days lengthened and the light returned, People celebrated not only the birth of Christ, but also the hope and renewal that the new year promised. Over time, the 12 days of Christmas became more than just a time of religious observance. They became a part of the broader cultural celebration of the holiday season. The traditions surrounding the 12 days evolved, particularly in Western Europe, where the period became known for its festive atmosphere. Feasts were held, and gifts were exchanged, with each day of the 12 days offering a new opportunity for joy and celebration. It was during this time that the popular song The 12 Days of Christmas was written, capturing the playful and often extravagant spirit of the season. The song itself, with its accumulation of increasingly lavish gifts, reflected the celebratory mood that had come to define the period. Yet, even in its playful nature, the song still alluded to the idea that each day was special and unique, with its own gifts and blessings to offer. In some cultures, the 12 days of Christmas were also marked by the idea of wassailing, a tradition in which people would visit neighbors and friends, singing carols and offering blessings for the coming year. This practice of wassail, which comes from an Old English word meaning be well, was often accompanied by the sharing of food and drink, creating a sense of community and camaraderie that was central to the Christmas season. The exchange of gifts, which had long been a part of Christmas customs, took on even more significance during this time, as people sought to express their love and appreciation for one another. However, the 12 days of Christmas were not solely about giving and receiving. In many cultures, the period was also marked by a deep sense of reflection and renewal. It was a time to give thanks for the blessings of the past year and prepare for the challenges of the year to come. For some, it was a time to engage in acts of charity, offering help and support to those in need. This spirit of giving and reflection was rooted in the core Christian teachings of love, compassion, and service to others. The 12 days provided an opportunity to live out these values in a tangible way, whether through acts of kindness, prayer, or the sharing of resources. In some parts of Europe, the celebration of the 12 days was also connected to the ancient customs of the winter solstice. The solstice, which falls near the beginning of the 12 days, was a time when people believed the balance between light and dark was in flux. The 12 days, then, represented a time when the forces of nature were in transition, and people could symbolically participate in the return of light. The warmth of the hearth, the lighting of candles, and the sharing of food during this time were all ways of acknowledging and celebrating the return of the sun. The 12 days were a time to recognize the victory of light over darkness, both in the natural world and in the spiritual realm. As the centuries passed, the 12 days of Christmas continued to evolve, incorporating elements from various cultures and traditions. The Christian emphasis on the birth of Christ remained central, but the customs surrounding the celebration became more varied and diverse. From the elaborate feasts of the medieval courts to the caroling traditions of rural villages, the 12 days came to represent not only a time of spiritual reflection, but also a time of community celebration. This blending of the sacred and the secular, of reverence and revelry, is part of what makes the 12 days of Christmas so unique. Even in modern times, the 12 days of Christmas continue to hold a special place in many people's hearts. While the religious observance of the 12 days may have diminished for some, the period is still marked by a spirit of joy, togetherness, and gratitude. The Christmas feast, a highlight of the holiday season, goes beyond being simply a celebration of food and drink. It is a rich cultural tradition steeped in history, symbolism, and a deep connection to the rhythms of nature. At its heart, the Christmas meal is a reflection of abundance and the warmth of togetherness. While the exact foods may vary depending on region and personal preference, the underlying themes of the feast remain constant. The joy of sharing, the expression of gratitude, and the honor of family and community. The act of gathering around the table for a meal during Christmas is not just a culinary experience, but a spiritual one, where food becomes a means of connection to both past traditions and present blessings. The origins of the Christmas feast are tied to ancient celebrations, where food and drink played central roles in marking significant occasions, such as solstice festivals and harvest celebrations. These rituals were deeply tied to the cycles of nature, where the seasons dictated when food was abundant and when it was scarce. During the winter solstice, the darkest and longest night of the year, communities would gather to celebrate the return of the sun. In these early solstice festivals, food was seen not just as sustenance, but as a gift, a symbol of survival through the harshest months of the year. As Christianity spread across Europe, these pre-existing traditions merged with the new religious celebrations of Christmas. The Christmas feast, in many ways, became a continuation of these ancient solstice rituals, infused with Christian significance, but still maintaining the deep connection to the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. At its core, the Christmas feast is a celebration of abundance. After a long year of work and preparation, the holiday season offered families and communities a chance to come together and enjoy the fruits of their labor. In agricultural societies, the winter months were a time of rest after the hard work of planting, harvesting, and tending to the land. The Christmas meal often became a way to honor the work of the year, to celebrate the harvest, and to share the bounty with loved ones. Meat, which might have been scarce during other parts of the year, would appear on the table during the Christmas feast in a show of abundance and generosity. Depending on the region, this could include roast turkey, ham, goose, or beef, all of which were seen as luxuries that were saved for special occasions. But the abundance of the Christmas feast extended beyond the main course. The spread of side dishes, desserts, and drinks was equally rich and varied. In many cultures, the Christmas table was laden with fruits, nuts, bread, and cakes. These foods were not just for enjoyment, but were symbolic of the bounty of the earth and the blessings that were shared among family and friends. Fruits like apples, oranges, and dried figs, which were once considered exotic and rare, symbolized the gift of the harvest and the renewal of life that came with the winter solstice. In some traditions, a rich plum pudding or fruit cake would take center stage, embodying the sweetness and warmth of the season. In other regions, special breads, such as stollen or panettone, would be prepared to mark the occasion, each loaf carrying its own cultural significance and symbolism. The Christmas feast was also a time for family and community to come together. In many ways, the act of sharing a meal is one of the oldest and most profound ways for people to connect. Throughout history, the communal meal has been central to human society, a time when bonds are strengthened, stories are told, and relationships are nurtured. During the Christmas season, the table becomes a sacred space where the past and present converge. The gathering of family members, the sharing of food, and the celebration of togetherness reflect the values of hospitality, love, and community that are central to the Christmas message. It is a time to put aside the stresses and challenges of everyday life and focus on the blessings of the present moment. The food itself, rich in flavor and variety, becomes an expression of the love and care that family members share with one another. In many cultures, the preparation of the Christmas meal itself is a deeply meaningful tradition, one that is passed down from generation to generation. For some, the recipes used in the Christmas feast are family secrets, carefully guarded and perfected over time. The act of cooking together becomes a ritual in itself, where family members, often spanning several generations, come together to prepare the meal. These cooking traditions carry with them a sense of continuity, connecting the present to the past and honoring the wisdom of those who have come before. Recipes are handed down, sometimes without written instructions, through careful observation, tasting, and practice. The preparation of food becomes an act of reverence and gratitude as family members honor the traditions of their ancestors while creating new memories for the next generation. The Christmas feast also offers an opportunity for charitable giving. For centuries, Christmas has been a time for reaching out to those in need, particularly those who are less fortunate. The abundance of food on the Christmas table is not just for the family, but is often shared with neighbors, the sick, and the poor. In some cultures, it was customary to invite strangers or those without family to join the Christmas meal, ensuring that no one was left without a place at the table. This spirit of generosity, of sharing one's blessings with others, is at the heart of the Christmas celebration. The Christmas feast, in this sense, becomes a means of extending love and compassion to others, embodying the Christian message of goodwill and kindness. In some parts of the world, the Christmas meal also includes foods that are specifically tied to religious rituals. For instance, in some Eastern Orthodox Christian traditions, the Christmas meal is often preceded by a fasting period, and the meal itself includes 12 symbolic dishes, representing the 12 apostles. Each dish is carefully chosen to reflect the spiritual significance of the season, and the act of eating becomes an offering of thanks and praise. Mistletoe, with its delicate green leaves and small white berries, is one of the most iconic symbols of the Christmas season. It is often hung in doorways and beneath ceilings, creating spaces for lovers and friends to share a kiss, a tradition that has persisted for centuries. However, the story of mistletoe goes far beyond its use as a romantic prop. Its origins stretch back to ancient times, when it was revered not just as a decoration, but as a symbol of life, fertility, and protection. Over the centuries, its meaning has evolved, intertwining with various cultures, beliefs, and mythologies, until it became a central part of our modern Christmas traditions. In the ancient world, mistletoe was a plant of great significance, particularly in the Druidic traditions of the Celtic peoples. The Druids, who held religious and spiritual authority in ancient Celtic societies, considered mistletoe to be a sacred plant. They believed it had magical properties, capable of healing ailments, promoting fertility, and protecting against evil spirits. Mistletoe's ability to grow on trees, seemingly without roots, contributed to its mystical nature. It was seen as a bridge between the heavens and the earth, connecting the mortal world with the divine. The Druids would harvest mistletoe with great ceremony, using a golden sickle to cut it from oak trees, a tree they considered sacred. This practice was often carried out during the winter solstice, when the power of the sun was believed to be at its weakest, and the return of light was symbolized by the cutting of mistletoe. The connection between mistletoe and the winter solstice was not limited to the Druids. In Norse mythology, mistletoe played a key role in the myth of Baldur, the beloved god of light and purity. According to the legend, Baldur's mother Frigg made every object on earth promise not to harm her son, but she overlooked the mistletoe, believing it to be harmless. Loki, the trickster god, took advantage of this oversight and crafted a spear from mistletoe, which he used to fatally wound Baldur. The death of Baldur brought great sorrow to the gods and was seen as a symbol of the death of the sun during the darkest days of winter. However, after Baldur's death, the gods managed to bring him back to life, and mistletoe became a symbol of resurrection and renewal. In this context, mistletoe's association with life, death, and rebirth became deeply rooted in the mythological traditions of the northern European peoples. Over time, mistletoe's significance continued to evolve, particularly as Christianity spread across Europe. In Christian symbolism, mistletoe took on a new meaning. Its ability to grow on trees, without rooting in the soil, came to symbolize the mystery of Christ's divine nature, fully divine and fully human, yet not bound by earthly limitations. The berries of the mistletoe, white in color, were sometimes associated with the purity of the Virgin Mary, further embedding the plant in Christian tradition. The use of mistletoe during the Christmas season, particularly as a decoration in homes and churches, was also tied to the idea of protection. Just as the ancient peoples believed that mistletoe could ward off evil spirits, Christians began to associate it with the protection of the home and family, making a common sight in Christmas decorations. The practice of hanging mistletoe in doorways, under which people were expected to kiss, has its own fascinating history. The tradition likely evolved from a combination of ancient customs and medieval beliefs. In Norse mythology, mistletoe was a symbol of peace, and it was believed that enemies who met beneath the mistletoe would lay down their weapons and embrace. This idea of reconciliation and peace was carried into the Christian celebration of Christmas, a time when goodwill and harmony were central themes. The custom of kissing beneath the mistletoe became a popular tradition in 18th century England, when it was believed that a kiss beneath the mistletoe would bring good fortune and blessings to those who partook in the gesture. Over time, this practice spread throughout Europe and eventually to America, where it became firmly entrenched in the holiday celebrations. The tradition of kissing under the mistletoe has also been interpreted in a variety of ways throughout history. In some cultures, the kiss was seen as a symbol of love, and it was believed that those who kissed under the mistletoe would fall in love in the coming year. In others, it was a more playful and light-hearted custom, where the kiss was a simple token of friendship or goodwill. The idea of exchanging a kiss under the mistletoe was, at its core, a way to bring people together, to bridge divides, and to celebrate the bonds of human connection that are central to the holiday season. Even today, the act of sharing a kiss beneath the mistletoe continues to evoke a sense of warmth, joy, and festive spirit, making it one of the most beloved and enduring traditions of Christmas. While the mistletoe tradition has become synonymous with romance, its meaning goes far beyond mere flirtation. The symbolism of mistletoe speaks to deeper themes of protection, peace, and renewal, all of which are integral to the message of Christmas. Its ancient roots as a sacred plant, revered by the Druids and honored in Norse mythology, remind us that Christmas traditions are not just about celebration, but also about honoring the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The plant's connection to the solstice, to the return of the light, and to the promise of new beginnings ties it directly to the heart of the Christmas message, the triumph of hope, love, and renewal over darkness and despair. The popularity of mistletoe during Christmas has also contributed to its continued presence in holiday decorations, where it often appears as part of wreaths, garlands, and other festive arrangements. In many homes, mistletoe is carefully placed in doorways or hung from ceilings, signaling the invitation for goodwill, cheer, and connection. The idea of shared moments under the mistletoe, where people come together, exchange a kiss, and wish each other well, creates an atmosphere of warmth and togetherness that is synonymous with the spirit of Christmas. Santa Claus, with his jolly demeanor, red suit, and white beard, is undoubtedly one of the most universally recognized figures of Christmas. His image is so firmly embedded in the holiday season that it is difficult to imagine Christmas without him. However, when we trace the origins of Santa's sleigh, the mode of transportation that carries him across the world in a single night, we uncover a fascinating blend of mythology, tradition, and evolution that goes far beyond the familiar image of Santa flying through the night sky. To understand the sleigh and its significance, we need to delve into ancient myths, folklore, and even the cultural shifts that led to the sleigh being a central part of Santa's magical journey. The earliest connections between Santa and sleighs can be traced back to various mythological figures who, like Santa, were associated with winter and the supernatural. In Norse mythology, the god Odin, known for his wisdom and power, rode an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir, which could traverse the heavens. Sleipnir was no ordinary horse. It could fly, and its ability to travel across great distances was integral to Odin's role as a god who wandered the world, particularly during the Yule season. Odin was often depicted as a bearded figure, traveling through the sky, and it is easy to see how this ancient myth could have inspired later depictions of Santa. The idea of a god or supernatural being flying through the night sky, on a sleigh or a magical steed, captures the imagination and would later evolve into a figure of Santa Claus and his iconic sleigh. While Odin's Sleipnir was an important precursor, it is essential to look at the way the figure of Santa Claus evolved over time. The Santa we recognize today is a result of centuries of folk traditions merging from various European cultures, particularly Dutch and British, with contributions from more modern figures in popular culture. The Dutch brought the figure of Santa Claus to America in the 18th century. This early version of Santa was a stately, bishop-like figure who rode a horse and delivered gifts to children. In early depictions, Santa Claus was more akin to a saintly figure who traveled by horseback, but as the tradition spread and evolved, elements of older European folklore and myths began to blend with the modern holiday celebrations. The image of Santa's sleigh, as we know it today, began to take shape in the early 19th century. One of the key moments in this transformation was the publication of the famous poem A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore in 1823. The poem, commonly known as A Night Before Christmas, offered the first popularized image of Santa Claus riding a sleigh pulled by reindeer. In Moore's poem, Santa's sleigh was described as a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, which made their way across the sky, delivering presents to children. This portrayal was not only vivid and imaginative, but also captured the whimsy and magic that would come to define the modern Christmas season. The idea of a sleigh, capable of gliding to the night sky, became central to Santa's myth. It was no longer about a saintly figure riding a horse, but about a magical sleigh that could navigate the vast expanse of the world in a single night, delivering joy and gifts to children around the globe. Santa's sleigh, as described by Moore, was an embodiment of the magical realism that defined much of early Christmas folklore. The sleigh allowed for a sense of wonder and impossibility, a necessary vehicle for a figure who defied the laws of time and space. The image of Santa flying through the air, his sleigh drawn by reindeer, immediately captured the public's imagination. However, the sleigh's evolution did not stop with Moore's poem. As the popularity of Santa Claus grew, so did the details of his magical journey. Over the next few decades, Santa's sleigh and its accompanying reindeer were featured in countless Christmas stories, poems, and advertisements. In fact, one of the most enduring aspects of Santa's sleigh is the team of reindeer that pull it. The number and names of the reindeer were cemented in the public consciousness by the 19th century, with names like Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen becoming synonymous with the Christmas season. The reindeer themselves, much like the sleigh, have roots in older mythologies. In Norse mythology, the reindeer were associated with the goddess Freya, who was said to ride a chariot pulled by two cats. The reindeer's connection to the Norse and Scandinavian traditions is reflected in the modern-day image of Santa's sleigh team, which can be seen as a continuation of the ancient mythological connection to winter gods and supernatural creatures. The reindeer, with their antlers and their graceful, almost magical movements, have become just as important to Santa's journey as the sleigh itself. Over time, the sleigh and reindeer grew together in the collective imagination. The sleigh became an essential part of Santa's ability to deliver presents on Christmas Eve. Without the sleigh, Santa could not possibly carry all the gifts, and without the reindeer, the sleigh would have no means of movement. Together, they form the iconic image of Santa Claus as we know him today, a jolly, bearded man in a red suit, flying to the night sky with his magical sleigh and reindeer. But the sleigh and reindeer are not merely tools for transporting gifts. They are a means of invoking wonder and awe, which is central to the experience of Christmas. Santa's journey on Christmas Eve is not just about the gifts, but about the magic of the holiday season itself. The idea that Santa can travel around the world in a single night, gliding through the air in his sleigh, speaks to the boundless possibilities of the Christmas spirit. It evokes a sense of childlike wonder and belief in the impossible, reinforcing the themes of hope, generosity, and magic that define Christmas. As the 20th century dawned, the image of Santa and his sleigh was further solidified to the influence of media and advertising. One of the most significant influences on the modern depiction of Santa was Coca-Cola's advertising campaign, which began in the 1930s. Gift-giving has long been a central part of the Christmas tradition, and its significance stretches far beyond the act of exchanging material possessions. The roots of Christmas gift-giving can be found in ancient customs, religious practices, and societal norms that celebrated generosity, goodwill, and the spirit of love. As we trace the history of this practice, we begin to see how it evolved from acts of devotion and ritual to the vibrant and varied customs we recognize today. The exchange of gifts during Christmas is more than a way to share tangible items. It is a reflection of deeper values, of kindness, thoughtfulness, and a desire to bring joy and comfort to those we love. The practice of gift-giving during Christmas has its origins in both pagan and Christian traditions. Long before the holiday was associated with the birth of Christ, ancient cultures celebrated midwinter festivals that marked the longest night of the year, the winter solstice. These festivals, held in honor of various gods and deities, were characterized by feasting, merrymaking, and the giving of offerings. In ancient Rome, for example, the festival of Saturnalia was a time of revelry and exchange of gifts, particularly among friends and family. The exchange of presents during Saturnalia was meant to honor the god Saturn, and was a time of joyous celebration when the usual social norms were reversed and slaves and masters would swap roles. This inversion of roles and the act of gift-giving were symbols of the hope for renewal and the triumph of light over darkness, themes that would later become central to Christmas traditions. In medieval Europe, the tradition of giving gifts during Christmas was tied to religious observances, particularly the feast of St. Nicholas, which was celebrated on December 6. St. Nicholas, the 4th century bishop known for his act of generosity, became the central figure in gift-giving practices. His legendary acts of kindness, such as secretly providing dowries for poor young women, made him a beloved figure associated with charity. During his feast day, children would place their shoes by the door, hoping to receive small gifts, such as coins or sweets, from the saint. This tradition spread across Europe, and over time, it was incorporated into Christmas customs, particularly in countries like the Netherlands, where Santa Claus was the precursor to the modern Santa Claus. In these early Christmas traditions, the focus was less on the material value of the gifts and more on the symbolic meaning of giving, an expression of love, care, and compassion for others. The act of giving gifts on Christmas was also deeply rooted in Christian teachings. The story of the Magi, the 3 wise men who visited the newborn Jesus in Bethlehem, carries a strong message about the importance of giving. According to the Gospel of Matthew, the Magi brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to honor the Christ child. And these gifts were not just material offerings, but symbolic gestures that represented the reverence they had for the newborn king. The tradition of giving gifts at Christmas, then, became a way for Christians to honor the spirit of the season, emulating the wise men's offerings and expressing devotion to Christ. Over the centuries, this idea of giving as an act of devotion and love for Christ became deeply intertwined with the broader Christmas celebrations, which centered around family, community, and charity. As the centuries passed, the practice of exchanging gifts grew in scope and significance. By the 19th century, the commercialization of Christmas was on the rise, particularly in Western Europe and North America. The Industrial Revolution had brought about mass production, making goods more affordable and accessible, and this changed the way people approach gift-giving. No longer were gifts limited to simple, homemade items or small tokens of affection. Instead, they became increasingly elaborate and purchased from stores. Christmas shopping, which had once been a quiet and intimate practice, grew into a major cultural and economic event. The tradition of giving gifts became both a personal expression of love and a societal norm, with people feeling the pressure to give more extravagant presents to show their affection and social status. Despite this shift toward materialism, the core meaning of gift-giving during Christmas has remained largely unchanged. Even as the act of giving gifts became commercialized, people continue to view it as a way to express love, gratitude, and goodwill toward others. The exchange of presents became a way for families to demonstrate their care and affection for one another, and for communities to come together and share the joy of the season. The giving of gifts was seen as a means of deepening relationships and creating memories, as people spent time carefully selecting or crafting presents for their loved ones. The emotional significance of gift-giving, the thought behind the gift, and the joy of seeing someone's face light up when they receive something meaningful transcended the material aspect of the exchange. In many cultures, the tradition of giving gifts extended beyond the family to include acts of charity. Christmas became a time when people would open their hearts to those in need, offering not only material gifts, but also their time, resources, and kindness. Charitable donations, food drives, and volunteer work became an integral part of the holiday season, as people embraced the spirit of generosity that Christmas promotes. The idea of giving to others, particularly to those less fortunate, remains one of the most powerful aspects of the Christmas tradition. Through these charitable acts, the true spirit of Christmas gift-giving is preserved. Gifts are not just material possessions, but expressions of kindness, care, and the desire to bring joy to others. In modern times, the practice of gift-giving continues to evolve. While it is still an essential part of the holiday season, the focus has shifted somewhat. Many people today place greater emphasis on meaningful gifts, those that have personal significance or reflect a deep understanding of the recipient's desires and needs. Christmas is a time when people of all cultures, religions, and traditions come together to celebrate the warmth and magic of the season. Among the many symbols that have come to define this holiday, angels hold a special place in the hearts and imaginations of those who celebrate it. For centuries, angels have been woven into the fabric of Christmas lore, appearing in nativity scenes, Christmas cards, and songs. These celestial beings, often depicted as messengers of hope, love, and divine presence, are integral to the Christmas story, and their symbolism is deeply intertwined with the themes of light, peace, and spiritual renewal that characterize the season. The role of angels in the Christmas story is rooted in the Christian tradition, specifically in the birth of Jesus Christ. According to the Bible, angels were among the first to announce the arrival of the Savior. In the Gospel of Luke, it is an angel who delivers a joyous message to the shepherds that the Messiah has been born in Bethlehem, bringing tidings of great joy to all people. This announcement is one of the most iconic moments of the Nativity story, as the angel speaks of peace on earth and goodwill toward men. The image of the angel in the fields, proclaiming the birth of Christ to the humble shepherds, has been passed down through generations and is central to the way we understand Christmas. The angel's role as a messenger of peace and salvation reflects the core Christian values that Christmas celebrates. In Christian theology, angels are often seen as messengers of God, intermediaries between the divine and the earthly realms. They are depicted as beings of great power and beauty, whose purpose is to carry out God's will and deliver important messages to humanity. The angelic announcement of Christ's birth is not just a pivotal moment in the nativity story, but also a reflection of the larger Christian belief in divine intervention and grace. The angels at Christ's birth signify the arrival of a new era, one where God's presence is made manifest in the world through the birth of Jesus. In this context, angels are not only symbolic of divine presence, but also the transformative power of faith, hope, and love. Beyond the nativity story, angels are also featured prominently in Christmas carols and hymns, which have long been an essential part of the holiday celebration. Carols like "Hark, the Herald Angels Sing" and "Angels We Have Heard on High" celebrate the role of angels in the Christmas story, further emphasizing their importance in the narrative of Christ's birth. These songs are filled with imagery of angels rejoicing in the heavens, heralding the arrival of the Savior, and bringing joy and peace to the world. The beauty of these hymns and their angelic themes resonates deeply with those who celebrate Christmas, creating an atmosphere of reverence, joy, and wonder. In many ways, angels are the celestial embodiment of the joy and hope that Christmas represents. Their presence in music, art, and storytelling continues to inspire feelings of awe and transcendence, reminding people of the divine grace that underpins the holiday season. The concept of angels at Christmas is not confined solely to Christian religious traditions. It has also found its way into secular celebrations of the holiday. The image of the angel, with its ethereal beauty and otherworldly grace, has become a symbol of the magic and wonder of Christmas. In many homes, angels are featured as part of holiday decorations, whether as ornaments on the Christmas tree, figures in nativity scenes, or as figurines adorning mantels and tables. These angels, while often less explicitly religious, still evoke the sense of peace, joy, and goodwill that is central to the Christmas spirit. They are seen as symbols of protection and blessing, watching over loved ones and ensuring that the season is filled with harmony and love. The angel's role in Christmas also reflects a universal longing for peace and goodwill. Angels, as messengers of peace, are a reminder of the human desire for harmony and unity in a world often filled with conflict and division. The angelic announcement of Christ's birth heralds the coming of peace on earth, a message that resonates deeply, especially during times of turmoil or uncertainty. In this sense, the angel at Christmas represents a hope for a better world, one where kindness, compassion, and understanding prevail. The image of the angel calling for peace is timeless, and it continues to inspire those who observe the holiday to strive for harmony in their own lives and communities. In addition to their symbolic role as messengers of peace and love, angels are also associated with the protection and guidance of individuals. Many people turn to the image of the angel as a source of comfort and support during difficult times. The angel is often seen as a guardian, watching over families and homes, offering a sense of security and reassurance. This protective role is reflected in the way angels are depicted in Christmas imagery, surrounding the nativity scene, hovering over the manger, and gazing upon the Holy Family with a sense of loving care. The angel's presence at the birth of Christ signifies the divine protection that surrounds Jesus, as well as the spiritual protection available to all who seek it. The concept of the angel as a guardian and guide is one of the most enduring aspects of the holiday's symbolism, offering a sense of solace and hope to those who may feel vulnerable or in need of comfort. Angels also represent the idea of divine beauty and grace. In many cultures, the angel is depicted as a being of extraordinary beauty, with wings that symbolize both freedom and transcendence. This aesthetic quality has made angels a popular subject in art and literature throughout the centuries. The image of the angel, with its flowing robes, glowing skin, and ethereal wings, captures the imagination and invokes a sense of the divine. Whether in elaborate depictions of angels in Renaissance paintings or the simple, elegant designs of modern Christmas ornaments, the angel embodies a sense of purity, light, and beauty that transcends the material world. At Christmas, when the world can often feel heavy with the demands and challenges of daily life, the image of the angel offers a moment of spiritual respite, reminding people of the divine beauty and grace that exists beyond the mundane. In modern times, the figure of the angel continues to evolve. While traditional depictions of angels as winged, heavenly beings still dominate Christmas imagery, contemporary interpretations often emphasize the angel's role as a symbol of inner peace and personal transformation. Many people today view angels not just as celestial messengers, but as symbols of hope and healing, offering guidance during difficult times. The popularity of angel-themed decorations, books, and films reflects the enduring fascination with these beings and their connection to human desire for connection, protection, and transcendence. Angels have also become important figures in the broader concept of Christmas spirituality, which extends beyond religious observance and into the realm of personal reflection and inner peace. The story of the Star of Bethlehem is one of the most profound and beautiful narratives associated with Christmas. It is a symbol of guidance, hope, and divine presence, encapsulating the deep spiritual meaning of Christ's birth. The story of the star, as told in the Gospel of Matthew, is simple yet rich with symbolism. According to the text, a star appeared in the sky to announce the birth of Jesus, a miraculous sign that guided the 3 wise men, or magi, to Bethlehem. They followed this star, traveling from distant lands, bringing with them gifts to honor the newborn king. This celestial event marked not only the birth of Jesus, but also a new era in human history, an era of hope and salvation for the world. The Star of Bethlehem has been a subject of fascination for centuries, inspiring countless interpretations, works of art, and theological reflections. It is often viewed as a symbol of divine guidance, offering a beacon of light in a world that is otherwise dark and uncertain. For Christians, the star represents Christ himself, the light of the world, whose birth heralded the arrival of salvation. It is said that the star guided the wise men to the place where the child lay, leading them to the humble manger where Jesus was born. This imagery of the star as a guide speaks to the spiritual journey that many believe all people must undertake. Just as the Magi followed the star to find Christ, so too do many seek spiritual guidance to find their own path to truth and peace. The appearance of the star in the night sky also signifies the presence of something greater than the earthly realm. In the ancient world, stars were often seen as omens or signs from the gods. They were believed to carry messages or indicate significant events, and in the case of the Star of Bethlehem, it is seen as a sign from God himself. The star is a heavenly declaration, a divine proclamation that something extraordinary has happened on earth. It is a symbol of God's direct involvement in the world and his desire to reach out to humanity, to bring his message of love, peace, and redemption to all people. The star's appearance at Christmas, then, is not merely a natural phenomenon, but a manifestation of God's will and purpose, marking the birth of Jesus as a fulfillment of ancient prophecies and the beginning of a new chapter in salvation history. Over time, the Star of Bethlehem has come to represent more than just a specific event of Christ's birth. It has become a symbol of hope and renewal, reminding people that no matter how dark the world may seem, there is always a possibility of light. The star shines brightly in the Christmas story, offering guidance and direction to those who seek it. In a time when many people face uncertainty, fear, or despair, the star serves as a reminder that there is always a way forward, a path to follow that leads toward peace, love, and divine grace. The star's brilliance in the darkness also reflects the idea that hope is often most needed when things seem darkest. Just as the world was in need of a savior when the star appeared, so too do people in times of personal struggle or global crisis look for signs of hope and deliverance. The image of the star is also significant in terms of its universal appeal. Unlike other symbols associated with Christmas that may be specific to particular traditions or religious practices, the Star of Bethlehem is a symbol that resonates across cultures and faiths. Its message of light overcoming darkness and its connection to a divine presence are themes that transcend religious boundaries. The star has been embraced not only by Christians, but also by many who see it as a symbol of hope, enlightenment, and the search for truth. It is a celestial sign that speaks to the universal human longing for guidance and understanding, regardless of one's background or beliefs. In this way, the Star of Bethlehem continues to unite people, drawing them together in the shared desire for peace, love, and a better world. In Christian traditions, the star is often depicted as part of nativity scenes, where it hovers above the manger, shining down on the Holy Family. This image is one of the most iconic representations of Christmas and is meant to convey the idea that Christ's birth is a moment of divine intervention, an event that is both spiritual and cosmic in its significance. The star, with its bright light, is often shown as illuminating the humble surroundings of the manger, symbolizing the contrast between the divine glory of Christ's birth and the earthly poverty of his circumstances. This stark contrast serves as a powerful reminder that God chose to enter the world not as a king in a palace, but as a child in a stable, born to humble parents in an insignificant town. The light of the star, then, is not just a physical phenomenon. It is a spiritual light that shines in the darkness of human existence, showing that the divine is present even in the most unexpected places. The Star of Bethlehem has also been the subject of much debate among astronomers, historians, and theologians. Various theories have been proposed about what exactly the star was, and whether it could have been a natural astronomical event. Some suggest that it could have been a rare conjunction of planets, a supernova, or a comet. Others have proposed that it was a unique celestial event, a sign from God that cannot be explained by natural phenomena. Regardless of the exact nature of the star, its symbolic importance remains undiminished. Whether it was a literal star or a divine miracle, the message it carries is clear. The birth of Christ was a moment of cosmic significance, a moment that transcended time and space and had a profound impact on the world. For many people, the Star of Bethlehem is not just a historical or theological symbol. It is a personal reminder of the power of faith and the transformative nature of the Christmas story. Just as the Magi followed the star to find Christ, so too do many people seek guidance in their own lives. The journey of the Magi is often seen as a metaphor for the spiritual journey that individuals undertake in their search for meaning and purpose. The star, as a guiding light, represents the divine direction that people seek as they navigate the challenges of life. It is a symbol of God's presence in the world, a presence that guides and leads those who are open to it. The Star of Bethlehem, in this sense, continues to inspire individuals to seek truth, peace, and spiritual fulfillment. The star symbolism also speaks to the importance of looking beyond the material world and recognizing the spiritual reality that exists beyond what we can see. At Christmas, the star reminds us that there is more to life than just the day-to-day struggles and the hustle and bustle of the season. It encourages us to pause and reflect on the deeper meaning of the holiday, to recognize the spiritual significance of Christ's birth and the light that it brings into the world. The star, in this way, is not just a symbol of the past. It is a call to action in the present, urging people to seek the divine light that is always available to them, guiding them through the darkness and into a future filled with hope and possibility. As Christmas approaches each year, the image of the Star of Bethlehem remains a powerful reminder of the deeper spiritual truths that the holiday celebrates. It is a symbol of divine guidance, of light overcoming darkness, and of the eternal hope that Christmas brings. Whether seen in a nativity scene, a Christmas carol, or in the quiet moments of personal reflection, the star continues to shine brightly in the hearts of those who celebrate Christmas, offering a beacon of light that transcends time, space, and circumstance. It is a reminder that no matter where we are on our own journeys, there's always a guiding light to lead us toward love, peace, and divine grace. As the cold winds of winter sweep through the land, the stories of mythological beings tied to the season often reflect both the harshness and beauty of the world around them. Among these winter spirits, the figure of Huldra stands out as a mysterious and fascinating character in Scandinavian folklore. Huldra, often depicted as a beautiful woman with a hidden, sometimes animalistic nature, is a complex figure, embodying both the enchantment and the dangers of the wild, untamed world of the forest. Her story has woven itself into the fabric of the holiday season, echoing themes of the natural world, transformation, and the power of the unseen. In many of the legends, Huldra is described as a beautiful woman who appears in the woods, her flowing hair and bright eyes captivating those who encounter her. However, her beauty often hides a more unsettling truth. Huldra is not entirely human. In some versions of the story, she is said to have a tail, often described as a cow's or fox's tail, that she hides beneath her clothing. The tail is a symbol of her otherworldly nature, a reminder that she is not entirely of this earth. This hidden aspect of Huldra reflects the folklore's deeper connection to the wild, untamed forces of nature, where appearances can be deceiving and the line between human and animal, between the natural and the supernatural, is often blurred. Her ability to hide her true nature and seduce men into the wilderness with her beauty speaks to the allure and danger of the natural world itself, which, while beautiful, is also unpredictable and full of hidden perils. Huldra's role in Scandinavian folklore is not merely one of seduction or trickery, though. She is also considered a guardian of the forest and a protector of nature. In some tales, Huldra is depicted as a helpful spirit, aiding those who respect the forest and its creatures. She might guide lost travelers, offering them food or shelter, or she might help those who are brave enough to seek her out with wisdom and guidance. However, her favor is not easily earned. Those who disrespect the forest or take more than they need from the land risk angering her, and in these cases, Huldra's wrath can be swift and dangerous. She might lead hunters or travelers astray, causing them to wander deeper into the forest until they are lost forever, or she might use her powers to punish those who harm the environment. This dual nature of Huldra, both helpful and dangerous, reflects the ambivalence that the natural world often holds in mythology. The same forces that sustain life can also take it away. In many tales, Huldra is also connected to the concept of fertility and the cycles of life. As a spirit of the forest, she is closely tied to the earth and its rhythms. Her role in mythology often mirrors the agricultural cycle, as she is seen as both a nurturer and a force of destruction. In some stories, she is believed to control the fate of the crops, ensuring that the harvest is abundant for those who respect the land. She is also often associated with the birth and death cycles, as her presence in the forest marks the ever-turning wheel of life. This connection to the natural world and the cycles of growth and decay makes Huldra a powerful figure, embodying the life-giving forces of nature as well as the darker, more destructive aspects of the earth. The figure of Huldra also speaks to the human relationship with nature and the wild spaces that have long been seen as both beautiful and dangerous. In many ways, she represents the boundary between civilization and the untamed wilderness, a reminder of the dangers and allure of the natural world that lies beyond the comforts and safety of home. In the Scandinavian countryside, where the forests are dense and mysterious, stories of Huldra serve as cautionary tales for children and adults alike, warning them to respect the land and its inhabitants. At the same time, the stories of Huldra also capture the deep awe and reverence people have for nature, with all its beauty, mystery, and unpredictability. Huldra's character has evolved over the centuries, and in modern interpretations, she is often depicted as less a malicious figure and more as a symbol of the spirit of the wilderness. Her once dominant role as a seductress or trickster has been softened, and she is now sometimes seen as a more benevolent or misunderstood figure, a protector of nature and a guide to those who seek a deeper connection with the earth. In some contemporary versions of the Huldra myth, she is portrayed as a figure who encourages respect for the environment and a return to simpler, more harmonious ways of living. In these modern adaptations, Huldra serves as a reminder that, while nature is a source of beauty and nourishment, it also demands respect and care. The legends of Huldra are not only part of the folklore of Scandinavia, but have also spread to other parts of Europe. In Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, her story is told in various forms, with slight differences in her appearance, role, and behavior. However, one common thread throughout these stories is her connection to the forest and the natural world. In many of the stories, she is a solitary figure who lives deep in the woods, far from human civilization. This isolation adds to her mystery, and her interactions with humans are often brief but intense. She might appear suddenly, offering a moment of grace or wisdom, only to disappear just as quickly into the forest, leaving the human characters to ponder whether they have experienced a dream or an encounter with the supernatural. In these regions, Huldra is often seen as a figure who represents the untamed beauty of nature, something both captivating and dangerous, alluring and frightening. Her presence in Christmas folklore reflects the deeper connection between the holiday and the natural world. Just as Christmas is a time of light, hope, and renewal, it is also a time when the darker aspects of the season, the cold, the long nights, and the silence of winter, are acknowledged and respected. In this sense, Huldra embodies both the hope of the returning sun and the acknowledgement of winter's darker, more primal forces. Her stories are a reminder that the holiday season, while filled with warmth and celebration, is also a time for reflection on the cycles of life, death, and rebirth that govern both the natural world and the human experience. The themes of Huldra's story are also woven into the broader tapestry of winter myths, which often explore the relationship between humans and the forces of nature. Winter itself, with its cold, still air and barren landscapes, is a time of both death and renewal. It is a season that requires patience, endurance, and respect for the natural rhythms that govern life on Earth. In Scandinavian folklore, The figure of Huldra is both a reminder of the dangers of nature and a symbol of the deep spiritual connection that humans have with the earth. She is a figure who embodies the wild, untamed forces of the world, offering a reminder that, while we may domesticate and tame nature in our everyday lives, there are always deeper, more mysterious aspects of the earth that remain beyond our control. Her stories are a reminder that, even in the darkest months of winter, the forces of nature continue to move, grow, and change, preparing the world for the return of spring and the renewal of life. As Christmas approaches, stories of Huldra and other winter spirits remind us of the balance between light and dark, good and evil, and the complexity of the natural world. These stories, rooted in ancient mythology, offer us both a cautionary tale and a deep sense of wonder, encouraging us to respect the forces that shape our world while celebrating the light, hope, and renewal that the season of Christmas brings. Through the figure of Huldra, we are reminded that nature, with all its beauty and mystery, is a powerful force, one that deserves our reverence, our care, and our understanding. The tradition of Christmas trees is one of the most enduring and beloved elements of the holiday season, but its origins are steeped in ancient customs that long predate the modern-day celebration of Christmas. What we now recognize as a Christmas tree, a beautifully adorned evergreen, decorated with lights, baubles, and tinsel, has a history that blends pagan rituals, medieval Christian practices, and festive customs that have evolved over centuries. Its journey from a symbol of ancient paganism to a central figure in Christmas celebrations tells a fascinating story of adaptation, transformation, and cultural integration. Long before the birth of Christ, ancient civilizations revered evergreens as symbols of life and renewal, particularly during the darkest months of the year. In ancient Egypt, for example, the people would bring palm fronds into their homes to celebrate the winter solstice, a time when they believed the sun was reborn. Similarly, in ancient Rome, the festival of Saturnalia, dedicated to the god Saturn, was a time of merrymaking and feasting, and part of the celebration included decorating homes with greenery, including fir branches. This practice symbolized the return of light and the promise of growth after the long, cold winter. In the northern regions of Europe, particularly among the Germanic and Norse peoples, the evergreen tree was a central symbol during the winter solstice. These peoples believed that evergreens, with their ability to stay green throughout the harsh winter, represented immortality, life enduring through death of the natural world around them. The Norse goddess Freya was said to have a chariot drawn by two cats, and it was believed that she rode to the forest, blessing the trees and the land with fertility and life. The Yule log, another important element of winter solstice celebrations, was also an evergreen, symbolizing the return of the sun and the renewal of life. With the spread of Christianity throughout Europe, many of these ancient customs were absorbed into the Christian tradition. By the 12th century, the practice of decorating trees during the winter months became associated with the Christian celebration of Christmas. The earliest Christmas trees were not the fully decorated, ornate trees we think of today, but rather simple wooden structures or small evergreens that were brought into homes to celebrate the birth of Christ. The first documented use of a Christmas tree is believed to have occurred in Germany, where the tradition began to spread throughout Europe. In medieval Germany, the custom of the paradise tree was popular. This tree was used in religious plays that depicted the Garden of Eden, and it was decorated with apples to represent the forbidden fruit. This tree was central to the play's message, which emphasized the story of Adam and Eve, the fall from grace, and the eventual redemption brought by Christ's birth. As the tradition evolved, the tree became a more permanent feature of the Christmas celebration, and instead of apples, it began to be decorated with other items, such as candles, nuts, and later, small toys. By the 16th century, Christmas trees began to appear in homes across Germany. These early Christmas trees were often placed in the main room of the house, where families could gather around them and celebrate the season. The trees were decorated with simple ornaments, often made from food, such as apples, nuts, and gingerbread cookies. Candles were also placed on the tree, a tradition that symbolized the light of Christ coming into the world. The glow of the candles on the tree became a central feature of the celebration, as families would sing carols and enjoy each other's company by the light of the tree. The Christmas tree tradition spread to other parts of Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, particularly through the influence of German immigrants and royal families. In the early 19th century, the custom of the Christmas tree, became widely popular in England, particularly after Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, who were of German descent, adopted the tradition. Prince Albert, who had grown up with Christmas trees in his native Germany, introduced the practice to the British royal family, and soon the tree became a symbol of royal prestige and an essential part of the Christmas celebration. The British royal family's embrace of the Christmas tree helped popularize it throughout the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe. In the United States, the Christmas tree was introduced by German immigrants in the 18th century, but it did not become widespread until the 19th century. The influence of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert's royal example played a role in the American embrace of the tree, as did the growing popularity of Christmas celebrations throughout the country. By the mid-19th century, Christmas trees had become a common feature of American holiday traditions, and they were gradually transformed into the elaborate, decorated trees we know today. In the 20th century, the Christmas tree became a central element of the commercialized holiday season. As urbanization increased and people moved away from rural areas, the tradition of cutting down a live tree from the forest began to wane. Instead, artificial trees were introduced, offering a convenient and sustainable alternative to the real trees. These trees were often made of tinsel or plastic and could be reused year after year. While the artificial tree became increasingly popular in the latter half of the 20th century, the real Christmas tree still holds a special place in many homes, especially those who enjoy the fresh scent and tradition of selecting a tree from a local farm. The decorations on a Christmas tree have also evolved over time, with each generation adding its own flair and style. The earliest trees were decorated with simple items, such as candles, fruit, and nuts, but as glass-blowing techniques improved, so did the ornaments. By the late 19th century, glass baubles, tinsel, and other delicate ornaments became common. These ornaments reflected the growing prosperity of the middle class, as well as a desire to create a beautifully decorated home for the holidays. In the early 20th century, the advent of electric lights revolutionized Christmas tree decoration. The use of electric lights, which replaced candles, made the process safer and more colorful, and it allowed for even more creativity in tree decoration. The tree itself has come to symbolize much more than just the holiday season. It is a symbol of family, togetherness, and tradition. The act of decorating the tree has become a cherished ritual in many homes, with families gathering to place ornaments on the tree, often reminiscing about past holidays and creating new memories together. For many, the Christmas tree represents the warmth and joy of the season, a focal point for the holiday celebrations, and a symbol of the love that fills a home during this special time of year. In some cultures, the Christmas tree is also linked to religious practices. In many Christian traditions, the tree is seen as a symbol of Christ's light coming into the world. The evergreen tree represents eternal life, a reminder that Christ's birth brings hope and renewal. The star at the top of the tree often represents the Star of Bethlehem, which guided the three wise men to the birthplace of Jesus. This symbolism connects the tree to the core Christian message of Christmas, the birth of Christ as the light of the world. As the Christmas tree continues to be an integral part of holiday celebrations around the world, it serves as a symbol of not only the spiritual significance of the season, but also the universal values of family, love, and unity. Whether through the act of decorating the tree, the joy of sharing gifts beneath it, or the simple beauty it brings to the home, the Christmas tree remains a powerful reminder of the warmth, hope, and magic that Christmas brings each year. Through its transformation from ancient pagan rituals to a modern holiday tradition, the Christmas tree stands as a testament to the power of symbolism, tradition, and the enduring spirit of the season.